The day my family disowned me started like any other. I was just a kid, really, 18 years old, with dreams bigger than our small town could hold. My passion was art, specifically digital art and animation. I spent every spare moment sketching on my tablet, creating worlds and characters that only existed in my mind. I showed my parents my portfolio, my eyes shining with hope. I wanted to go to a specialized art school in the city. Their reaction was like a slap in the face. My father, a man who valued practicality above all else, scoffed. "Art? That's not a real job. You'll starve." My mother, always echoing his sentiments, added, "We want you to have a stable future. Be a doctor, a lawyer, something respectable." Their words were a cold bucket of water on the fire of my ambition. The argument that followed was the worst we'd ever had. I tried to explain that the digital art industry was booming, that animators and game designers were in high demand. They wouldn't listen. They saw a starving artist, a disappointment. The ultimatum was clear: give up this foolish dream and enroll in the local community college for a business degree, or get out. My heart shattered. I looked at their stone-cold faces and realized they didn't see me. They saw a future they had designed, and I was just a rebellious piece that didn't fit. With tears streaming down my face, I packed a single bag. They stood by the door, silent, as I walked out of my childhood home, effectively disowned. The first few months were brutal. I was alone in a huge, indifferent city. I found a tiny, windowless room to rent and worked 2 jobs just to survive. I was a barista by day and a cleaner by night. Sleep became a luxury. Every bone in my body ached with exhaustion, but the fire inside me, though dampened, never went out. In the few hours between my shifts, I worked on my art. I took free online courses, watched tutorials until my eyes burned, and built my portfolio piece by piece. My tablet was my only companion, my escape from the harsh reality of my life. There were moments of deep despair, times when I almost called them, ready to beg for forgiveness and accept their terms. But then, I'd look at my art, at the progress I was making, and I knew I couldn't give up. This was my dream, and I was the only one who could make it happen. My first breakthrough came from a place I least expected. I started posting my work on a small, niche art forum online. I wasn't looking for fame, just a community, people who understood my passion. One night I posted a short animated clip I had spent weeks perfecting. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages. One was from a small indie game studio. They loved my style and wanted to know if I was available for freelance work. My hands were shaking as I typed my reply. It wasn't much money, just enough to quit one of my jobs, but it was everything to me. It was a validation, a sign that I was on the right path. That small gig opened doors. I poured my heart into the project, working tirelessly to deliver more than they expected. They were thrilled with the result and recommended me to another, slightly larger studio. My name started to circulate in the indie game community. The freelance work became more consistent. I was finally able to quit my cleaning job and focus on what I loved. I moved into a slightly better apartment, one that actually had a window. The sunlight felt like a miracle. I was still working incredibly hard, often pulling all-nighters to meet deadlines, but it was different now. It wasn't survival. It was creation. I was building something. I was becoming someone. A couple of years passed like this. My skills grew, my portfolio expanded, and my reputation solidified. I was no longer just a freelancer. I was a sought-after digital artist. Then came the big one. A major animation studio, one of the giants I had only dreamed of working for, reached out to me. They had seen my work on a popular indie game and wanted to offer me a full-time position as a character designer for their upcoming animated feature film. When I saw the email, I thought it was a prank. I read it 10 times before the reality sank in. Me, the kid who was told he would starve, was being offered a dream job at one of the most prestigious studios in the world. The salary they offered was more money than my parents probably made in a year combined. But it wasn't about the money. It was the culmination of every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every sacrifice. It was proof that I had been right to believe in myself. After accepting the offer, a strange feeling washed over me. I hadn't spoken to my family in 5 years. They didn't know anything about my struggles or my successes. A part of me was angry, but another part, a smaller, more vulnerable part, just wanted them to be proud of me. The movie I worked on was a massive success. It broke box office records and was critically acclaimed for its stunning animation and character design. My name was in the credits, a tangible piece of evidence of my journey. Around that time, my cousin, the only family member I had stayed in occasional, tentative contact with, reached out. She told me my parents were in serious financial trouble. My father's business had failed, and they were on the verge of losing their house, the very house they had kicked me out of. My cousin mentioned that they had seen the movie and had heard through the grapevine about my involvement. A week later, a number I didn't recognize called my phone. I answered, and a hesitant voice on the other end said my name. It was my mother. Her tone was completely different from the last time we'd spoken. It was soft, almost pleading. She stumbled over her words, talking about how they'd seen the movie, how beautiful the art was. Then, she got to the point. They were in trouble. They needed help. My father, she said, was too proud to ask, but they were desperate. They were about to lose everything. I listened silently as she spoke. All the anger and resentment I had held onto for years swirled inside me. I could have hung up. I could have said, "You made your choice. Now live with it." Just as they had done to me. I thought about the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness. But then I thought about the person I had become. I had fought to build a life on my own terms, a life filled with creativity and success. Holding on to that bitterness would only tarnish what I had achieved. It would make me like them. I took a deep breath. I told her I would help. But I had conditions. I wasn't just going to hand over money. I explained that what I had wasn't luck. It was the result of hard work they had dismissed. I told them I would help them get back on their feet. But they had to accept me, my life, and my career for what it was. I wanted an apology, a real one. Not for the money, but for the years of pain and rejection. A few days later, I drove back to my hometown for the first time in years. My father, a man I remembered as being so strong and unyielding, looked older and defeated. They both sat me down at the kitchen table, the same table where my dreams had been crushed. With tears in his eyes, my father apologized. He admitted he was wrong, that his fear and his narrow-minded view of success had blinded him. My mother held my hand and told me how proud she was. It was the conversation I had longed for so long. They didn't just want my help, they wanted me back. They begged me to be part of the family again. I helped them save their house. More importantly, we began the slow, difficult process of rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't perfect, and the scars were still there. But it was a start. They had disowned me because they couldn't see my vision. But what they didn't know was that the very passion they tried to extinguish would become the fire that not only built my future, but also saved theirs. My story isn't about revenge, it's about resilience. It's about proving that the only person who can truly define your worth is you. Thank you for listening. Remember to follow your own path, no matter what anyone else says.